The city breathes a shallow, humid sigh, a constant exhalation of exhaust and desperation. You, Marcus Thorne, feel its gritty breath upon your skin, a fine layer of urban dust that settles on everything, especially the spirit. Your days now are a mosaic of the petty and the predictable. Skip tracers, insurance fraud, the occasional spouse whose wandering eye needs documented. The grandeur of a badge, the righteous fury of the law, these are ghosts that no longer walk your cluttered office. Only the lingering scent of stale coffee and forgotten ambition. Your current assignment has taken you far from the city's concrete heart, into the bleached, whispering expanse where the land itself seems to hold its breath. Here, beneath a sky of indifferent blue, you stand in a desert safehouse with portable money counter humming. The machine's dry, rhythmic click whir is the only sound breaking the vast silence, a mechanical pulse against the desert's infinite stillness. Stacks of bundled bills pass beneath your thumb, crisp and anonymous, each one a testament to transactions best kept out of official ledgers. A cheap, static-laced radio perched precariously on a crate beside you crackles to life, cutting through the monetary drone. A breathless voice, urgent and grave, spills into the arid air. Breaking news. Councilman Reginald Sterling found dead. His downtown residence. Reginald Sterling. The name hangs, heavy and familiar. A man whose public persona was as polished as a newly minted coin, a pillar of civic duty, or so the city's gilded headlines proclaimed. You remember him from your previous life, a distant figure on podiums, his smile a practiced curve, his words woven with promises. The money, once a focus, blurs. Your gaze drifts past the neat stacks, past the dusty windows of the safe house that frame a desolate, unchanging horizon. You feel the city's infection, its systemic rot, reaching even here. Sterling's death is not an isolated incident. It's a symptom, a gash in the carefully constructed facade of order. The city's underbelly, a coiled serpent you know intimately, has struck again, its fangs dripping venom into the highest echelons. Days later, the desert dust still clinging to your boots, you find yourself back in your office. The news of Sterling's murder saturating every channel, every conversation. The official pronouncements are swift, reassuring, and utterly devoid of genuine insight. The police commissioner speaks of a thorough and exhaustive investigation. His voice a practiced balm, but you hear the tremor beneath it. The fear of what this unraveling might expose. The city, already teetering on a precipice of unease, now hums with a brittle tension, a collective held breath. The official narrative, already fragile, begins to crack. The afternoon light, thin and jaundiced through your grimy window, illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny forgotten secret. You lean back in your creaking chair, the springs protesting, and nod toward the door. Come in. The woman who steps into your office is a study in controlled devastation. Her expensive black dress, though impeccably tailored, seems to hang heavy on her, a shroud. This is Sterling's widow. You were the one to see, when no one else would listen. You observe her, a professional distance, a practiced shield. Her hands clutch a black leather purse, the knuckles white. He said you understood how things worked in this city, the real way. Her gaze locks onto yours, a desperate plea in their depths. My husband, he wasn't just murdered, and they're trying to bury it with him. A familiar weariness settles upon you, heavy as a shroud. You state, a formality you know she's already dismissed. The authorities, she scoffs, a flash of bitterness momentarily eclipsing her sorrow. They're already talking about a random act, a botched robbery. Reginald had enemies, Mr. Thorne, powerful ones. He was close to something. About the city's new development projects. the contracts. He said it went all the way to the top. You steep yourself in her words, the familiar scent of corruption rising like a phantom from the city's depths. She hesitates, her gaze darting to the closed door as if the walls themselves might be listening. He didn't say, just that it would bring them all down. He was meeting someone, the night he died, someone who had a piece of the puzzle. A single tear finally escapes, tracing a path through the faint powder on her cheek. Please, mister, I need to know what he found, what he died for. She reaches into her purse, withdrawing a thick envelope, the paper crisp and promising. She slides it across your desk, the thud of its weight echoing in the quiet room. It's an advance, a substantial one, far more than your usual retainer for missing cats or errant spouses. It's an offer of entry back into the labyrinth you thought you'd escaped. You stare at the envelope, then at her tear-streaked face. The city, a beast you know too well, calls to you. Its corruption, its endless hunger, is a stain you can never truly wash from your hands. Sterling's murder is not just a tragedy. It's an invitation, a challenge, a chance to confront the very institution that cast you out, to wrestle with the demons that still haunt your waking hours. The determination, long dormant, begins to stir within you, a low thrumming beneath the surface. You slide the envelope closer, the weight of it a palpable presence on your desk. The game, it seems, has begun again. You watch the digital display cycle through its green numbers, each crisp count a confirmation of the substantial advance. The crisp bills, a stack of freshly minted promises, slide through the machine with a rhythmic whir, a stark counterpoint to the profound silence of the surrounding emptiness. This money, more than just currency, is a leash, pulling you back into the labyrinth you swore you'd abandoned. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping truth and sometimes despair, tap against the cool metal of the counter. The first move is always to see, to touch, to breathe the air where the last breath was drawn. You navigate the city's arteries, the hum of the engine a low growl beneath you, until the familiar blue and white strobes paint the pre-dawn street with an urgent, pulsing light. The councilman's opulent residence, a fortress of glass and polished stone, now wears a shroud of official scrutiny. Yellow tape, a garish ribbon, cuts across the manicured lawn, an artificial barrier against the raw intrusion of death. Uniformed officers mill about, their faces grim, their movements practiced. Your eyes, honed by countless years of sifting through the detritus of human cruelty, trace the perimeter. A broken window, a jagged smile in the facade, screams forced entry. But something about it feels theatrical. Too clean, perhaps. The glass shards on the ground, glistening under the artificial lights, seem too perfectly scattered, almost arranged. Your gaze drifts, ignoring the obvious, searching for the discordant note in the symphony of the crime scene. Then a voice, sharp as a sliver of ice, cuts through the low murmur of the officers. Marcus Thorne. Detective Elena Rossi stands before you, her expression a careful mask of professional disdain, though a flicker of the old anger, the old hurt, dances in her eyes. Detective, you reply, your voice a low rasp, a sound scraped from the bottom of a whiskey glass, or what passes for it these days. Her jaw tightens. This isn't a sideshow for your morbid curiosity. This is an official investigation. You have no jurisdiction here. You have no authority anywhere anymore. The last words are laced with a venom she usually reserves for the city's worst offenders. A councilman murdered in his own home. That tends to pique a certain kind of interest. You counter. Your eyes, however, are not on her. It's too pristine, too obviously placed. A tremor of suspicion snakes up your spine. This isn't one of your missing cat cases. This is big, messy. You start poking around, you'll get burned again. Burned is a familiar sensation, You respond, your gaze still fixed on the glove. You notice something else. The soil in the fern pot is disturbed, not just by the glove, but by a faint circular indentation, as if a small, heavy object had been briefly pressed into it. Something else was there, something someone wanted to hide, or perhaps wanted to be found later. Consider yourself warned, she says, her hand brushing against the sidearm holstered at her hip, a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture of power. Now leave, or I'll have a uniformed officer escort you, and that won't be good for your reputation. You offer a thin, mirthless smile. My reputation precedes me, Elena. It always has. You turn, a silent concession to her authority, but your mind is already racing. The forced entry feels staged. The perfectly placed glove. The disturbed soil. The councilman's death is not what it seems. The official story is already a fabrication, a convenient lie. The advance in your pocket feels less like a reward and more like a binding contract, pulling you deeper into the undertow. The city, a sprawling beast of concrete and shadow, exhales behind you, its siren song fading with each mile. The official narrative, already a thick, viscous thing, solidifies in your absence, yet its edges feel frayed, its core hollow. You taste the grit of deception on your tongue, a familiar flavor. Your own eyes, however, seek the jagged truths hidden in the periphery. The sun bleeds across the western sky, painting the desert in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange as your vehicle devours the asphalt. The journey is a ritual, a shedding of the city's skin. This place, a sanctuary of sorts, smells of dust, stale coffee, and the metallic tang of old secrets. Fluorescent lights flicker to life as you flip a switch, bathing the room in a harsh, unyielding glow. You peel off your worn jacket, the fabric clinging to the sweat on your back. The air conditioner grumbles to life, pushing cool, dry air. Spread across the table are the initial fragments of Councilman Sterling's public life. News clippings, campaign finance reports, carefully curated press releases. You ignore them, your fingers reaching instead for the digital breadcrumbs you've meticulously gathered. You wait. The money counters drone, a steady pulse in the quiet. The reply arrives. A single encrypted file. The first thread you pull unravels a tapestry of gambling debts. Not small-time wagers, but substantial sums owed to various establishments that operate beyond the city's glittering lights. Places where the house always wins, and collection methods are decidedly unparliamentary. Your screen displays a ledger, its columns filled with figures that would make a saint weep, names coded, but addresses hinting at dingy backrooms and high-stakes poker games in the city's forgotten corners. Then, the affairs. A discreet apartment in a less fashionable district, rented under a shell corporation. Late-night rendezvous, hushed entrances and exits, captured by strategically placed low-resolution cameras. The faces of the companions are varied, some young, some older, all seeking something beyond the mundane. Sterling, it seems, craved more than just power. He hungered for fleeting, dangerous intimacy. The trail of gambling debts inevitably leads to the low-level organized crime syndicates that grease the city's underbelly. Sterling wasn't just a patron. He was a liability. The names of enforcers, muscle for the various crews, begin to surface. One name, in particular, repeats itself with unnerving frequency. The Butcher. A moniker earned not from culinary skill, but from a reputation for brutal efficiency. He's a known quantity, a blunt instrument in the hands of the city's unseen architects. A new message flashes on your tablet. It's from the contact, a single line of text. Butcher seen arguing with Sterling a week before. Over money. Loud. Public. You lean back, the worn office chair groaning beneath your weight. The pieces click into place with an almost audible precision. Gambling debts. Illicit affairs that could be used for blackmail. Ties to organized crime. A public altercation with a known enforcer, The butcher. Over money. It's all there, a perfectly packaged narrative ready for consumption. The official investigators, with their neatly pressed uniforms and their hunger for quick resolutions, would seize upon this with the fervor of starved wolves. The butcher becomes the obvious suspect. He has motive, opportunity, and a history of violence. He fits the profile of the crude, brutal killer implied by the scene at Sterling's home. The authorities would declare the case closed. Another piece of street violence. A tragic end for a councilman who strayed too far from the straight and narrow. But your gut, that unreliable oracle of truth, clenches. It's too neat, too perfectly aligned. The forced entry at Sterling's house, the staged nature of the scene. It doesn't align with the butcher's known methods. He's a battering ram, not a sculptor. His work is messy, direct, designed to send a clear, unambiguous message. This, however, felt like a message carefully crafted to misdirect, to point fingers away from the true puppeteer. You trace the lines of the butcher's scarred face on the screen with a finger. The man is a brute, yes, but he's also a tool, and tools are wielded by hands. Whose hands? This butcher, you realize, is not the killer. The game, you understand, has only just begun. You lean back, the worn leather of the office chair groaning in protest, a familiar lament. The pieces, sharp and jagged, now interlock with an unsettling ease. Councilman Sterling's gambling debts, the whispered illicit affairs that could unravel careers, and the shadowy ties to, well, that particular gruesome trade. It all paints a picture, stark and ugly. A man cornered, desperate, ready to betray anyone to save himself. And then, silenced. Your gaze drifts across the rough-hewn table, past the stack of crisp, newly counted bills, the counter's green display glowing with its final tally. It's too neat, too convenient. The obvious suspect, the bookie Sterling owed a small fortune, the one with a reputation for merciless collection. He's the logical next step. The man who could have been the muscle, the enforcer. A determined resolve hardens your jaw. The time for contemplation is over. The desert wind outside whips up a fine dust, scratching against the glass like a spectral hand. You grab your worn leather jacket, the weight of the concealed firearm a familiar comfort against your hip. The address you'd gleaned from your brief, intense dive into Sterling's digital detritus leads you to a forgotten corner of the industrial district. An abandoned factory, its skeletal frame silhouetted against the bruised twilight sky, stands testament to forgotten ambitions. The air here tastes of rust and decay, a metallic tang that bites at your tongue. Broken windows, like vacant eyes, stare out from the grimy brickwork. You move with a practiced caution, your boots crunching on shattered glass and discarded detritus. And then you find him. He lies sprawled near a collapsed loading dock, a figure of pathetic stillness amidst the industrial wreckage. It's not a gunshot wound, not in the way you've come to expect. This is a clean, precise puncture, a brutal, intimate act. A switchblade, perhaps. Your breath catches, a ragged gasp in the stagnant air. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't a loose end tying itself off. This is a deliberate act, a ruthless silencing. The bookie was meant to be the fall guy, the convenient narrative. But someone decided even a convenient narrative held too many lingering threads. Someone decided to snip them all. No wallet, no phone. A thorough job. But then, tucked beneath his outstretched hand, half hidden by a discarded oil drum, your fingers brush against a crumpled piece of paper. It's a hastily scrawled note, the handwriting rough, almost desperate. It reads, "The foundation. Don't let them build on the rot." The words resonate, a discordant chord in the silent factory. The foundation. A name, perhaps. Or a concept. Your mind races, piecing together fragments. Sterling, the city councilman, had been a vocal proponent of the massive Gateway City Development Project, a sprawling urban renewal initiative that promised to reshape the city's skyline. This isn't about gambling debts or illicit affairs anymore. This is about power, about land, about money on a scale that dwarfs a few 100,000 in outstanding bets. This is about the city itself, its very foundation. As you stand, the factory floor suddenly feels alive with unseen eyes. The danger has escalated, rising like a venomous tide. This is no longer a simple murder investigation. It's a dive into the deep, churning waters of high-level corruption. Your phone, a burner you keep for such occasions, vibrates in your pocket. An unknown number. You hesitate for a beat, then answer, pressing it to your ear. Sterling was just the first brick. Look into the gateway contracts, the environmental impact reports, the mayor's office. It's all connected. Don't trust the architect of the future. The line goes dead, leaving only the ghost of the voice and the persistent static. The architect of the future, the mayor, the gateway project, the dead bookie, the dead councilman. The pieces don't just interlock, they form a monstrous, intricate machine designed to crush anyone who stands in its way. You are no longer just an investigator. You are a target, stepping into a war you never intended to fight. The game has changed. The relentless sun, a molten eye, has long since relinquished its hold on the desolate expanse outside. A lone, bare bulb casts a harsh, unflattering glow on the scattered maps, city planning documents, and Sterling's meticulously organized yet ultimately damning files. Your determination, a steel rod in your spine, cuts through the fatigue that threatens to pull you under. You've been here for hours, days perhaps, the passage of time blurring into a single, focused pursuit. The initial sift through Sterling's digital footprint and the bookie's cryptic ledger yielded a dizzying mosaic of names and numbers, a spiderweb of connections that seemed to lead everywhere and nowhere. But now, as the dawn approaches, a pattern begins to emerge, faint at first, then sharp, undeniable. You remember the whispers from your time on the force, the hushed rumors of a grand waterfront redevelopment that had stalled, then mysteriously surged forward, gaining unprecedented support from City Hall. At the time, it was just another abstract political ambition, lost in the daily grind of street-level crime. Now it screams. You pull up old news clippings on your laptop, the screen a luminous portal to a not-so-distant past. Early reports show Sterling, then a rising star in urban planning, heavily involved in the preliminary stages of Project Chimera. His name is prominent on architectural blueprints, feasibility studies, community outreach programs. He was the public face, the visionary. Then, abruptly, his involvement ceases. Why the sudden disappearance of the project's architect? Next, you spread out a series of detailed city maps across the worn table, overlapping them with property acquisition records you painstakingly extracted from a municipal database. The pattern is stark, a grotesque masterpiece of avarice. Parcels of land bordering the proposed Project Chimera site, prime real estate along the forgotten industrial docks, were systematically acquired. Not by the development consortium directly, but by a labyrinthine network of shell corporations, their ownership veiled behind layers of offshore accounts and fictitious directors. You recall the bookie's ledger, its pages filled with cryptic abbreviations and figures. You cross-reference names from the ledger with the addresses of these newly acquired properties. Small businesses, family-owned for generations, suddenly sold off at fractions of their worth. Evictions under dubious pretexts. You find mention of relocation packages that were never delivered, of eminent domain proceedings that bypassed due process. The hum of the money counter seems to mock the paltry sums these people received for their livelihoods, swallowed whole by the monstrous chimera. The ledger also contains a list of larger payments, coded as consulting fees, or expedited permits. You painstakingly decode the abbreviations, matching them to public records of city council members, planning commissioners, and even sickeningly high-ranking individuals within the city's regulatory bodies. The numbers are staggering, a river of illicit wealth flowing into the pockets of those sworn to protect the city. Then, a detail surfaces that makes your breath catch, a shard of ice in your chest. Among the incident reports filed in the months leading up to the Project Chimera announcement, you find a series of unexplained fires at properties whose owners refuse to sell. A small printing press, a dry cleaner, a seafood wholesaler, all razed to the ground, investigations closed as accidental. But one report, a particularly gruesome one involving an elderly couple found beaten in their home after refusing a buyout, lists an officer involved, a patrolman from your old precinct, a name you recognize, a face you'd shared coffee with countless times. The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. It isn't just politicians and mobsters. It's the very institution you once served, the badge you wore with pride. Your former colleagues, the men and women who stood beside you, were either complicit or willfully blind, enforcing the intimidation, clearing the path for this monstrous development. The architect of the future, the mayor, the gateway project, the dead bookie, the dead councilman. The pieces don't just interlock. They form a monstrous, intricate machine designed to devour the city's soul. And now, you, Marcus Thorne, are standing directly in its path, having seen too much. The name Chimera still echoes in your mind. A beast of parts, a phantom limb of a project that had once stalled, then inexplicably surged forward, its tendrils reaching into the highest echelons. The city's waterfront, a forgotten canvas of industrial decay, now poised for a grand, corrupt rebirth. You trace the lines of connection, feel the threads tightening around the councilman's demise, a knot of greed and power. This truth, sharp and cold, demands to be spoken aloud, to be given weight by official ears. You find the chief investigator in her austere office, a room stripped of personal flourish, much like the woman herself. Her gaze, when it meets yours, holds the ghost of shared history, quickly overlaid by a professional indifference, a wall you know too well. Her voice is low, measured, the sound of a gavel poised. You lay out your findings, the whispers of Chimera now given form, connecting the murdered councilman to the massive redevelopment, to the sudden flow of dark money. Your words, precise and urgent, paint a picture of a city bleeding from within, its arteries clogged with illicit gains. Instead, a slow, deliberate shake of her head. And your proof, Marcus? Business dealings. It goes deeper than a simple hit. This is about control, about reshaping the city for someone else's profit. She leans back, her expression unreadable, a mask forged from years of duty. Your past, Marcus, it precedes you. Your theories, however elaborate, tend to lead down paths that diverge sharply from official channels. You blame the institution, the system. You always have. The words are not an accusation, but a statement of fact, a quiet knife twisted into an old wound. My loyalty is to the force, to due process, not to the ghosts of your personal vendettas. The weight of her words presses down, a leaden blanket. She sees only a man obsessed, not a man unearthing a truth. You are targeted, not just by the unseen hand behind the murder, but by the very walls of justice you hoped would shelter your findings. Leaving her office, the city streets feel sharper, the faces of strangers more guarded. The refusal to acknowledge your warnings only strengthens your resolve, but also amplifies the danger. Your next step is clear. The associate of the murdered councilman, a man named Sterling, someone who knew the intricacies of the Chimera project, someone you were about to question. He holds a piece of this intricate puzzle. The address leads you away from the city's concrete heart, out past the sprawling suburbs, into a landscape where the asphalt gives way to cracked earth and sparse, resilient scrub. The air grows thin, dry, carrying the scent of dust and distant mesquite. You drive for what feels like an hour, the world narrowing to the sun-baked horizon, until a low-slung, nondescript structure appears, half hidden by a cluster of gnarled junipers. It's an incongruous sound in this desolate place. The door gives way with a groan, revealing a stark interior. Your eyes sweep the room, taking in the scattered papers, the overturned chair, the general disarray that speaks of sudden violence. Then you see him. Sterling, or what's left of him. They knew. They always know. You were too slow, too trusting in the hope of official support. The chief investigator's dismissal, her wariness, now seems like a cruel irony, a delay that cost a man his life. This isn't just about exposing a conspiracy anymore. It's about survival. Someone is watching your every move, anticipating your every lead. The hum of the money counter, once an oddity, now sounds like a death knell. You are the next name on their list. The cold isolation, a familiar shroud, attempts to settle, but you shrug it off like a cheap suit. The system, once your bedrock, now a quicksand trap, seeks to bury you, Marcus Thorne. Good. Let them try. Their disdain is a weapon you will turn against them, their misjudgment a shadow for you to move within. This freedom, bitter as it tastes, is also a potent fuel. You move with the predatory grace of an animal sensing a shift in the wind. The city's arteries, usually a predictable pulse, now feel like a coiled serpent. Your objective: a small, unassuming apartment building on the fringes of the industrial district, where a mid-level accountant, rumored to have handled illicit ledgers for the now-deceased councilman, keeps his quiet life. He is a thread, fragile but vital, leading deeper into the tapestry of deceit. A glint, sudden and sharp, reflects from a window across the way, a momentary disruption in the urban sprawl. Your instincts, honed by years of walking the razor's edge, scream, not a reflection, a scope. The first shot rings out, a sharp crack that tears through the twilight, splintering the brickwork beside your head. Dust explodes, gritty against your cheek. You drop, rolling instinctively into the meager cover of an overflowing dumpster, the metallic clang echoing the frantic beat of your own pulse. A second shot thuds into the dumpster's side, the impact rattling your teeth. This isn't a warning. This is an execution. You scramble, a blur of motion, using the chaotic symphony of the city, a distant siren, a barking dog, to mask your retreat. A body, slumped against the sill, is visible even from this distance. They've done it. They've murdered a man and left you as the convenient, disgraced patsy. The narrative is already written. Marcus Thorne, the rogue former detective, snapped, taking out a witness in a desperate attempt to cover his tracks. The very system that cast you out will now hunt you with righteous fury. The city swallows you whole, its labyrinthine streets your only ally. You shed your jacket, toss your burner phone into a sewer grate, becoming a ghost, unseen, unheard. Hours later, the city lights are a distant, shimmering haze behind you as your beat-up sedan devours the empty highway miles. You drive until the concrete gives way to scrub brush and red dust, until the air thins and cools with the desert night. Your destination: a nondescript single-story structure nestled deep within a forgotten canyon, its corrugated metal walls blending seamlessly with the ochre landscape. It sits on a scarred wooden table, a testament to past dealings, its green display flicking through numbers that no legitimate business would ever see. You pull out a satellite phone, an untraceable relic, and punch in a number from memory. After 3 rings, a gravelly voice answers. "You're a dead man walking, Thorne," the voice rasps. "An old informant. The word is out. They're pinning the accountant's murder on you. Who's the muscle they send when they want a problem to disappear permanently?" A pause, heavy with calculation. "There's a new face," the informant says, his voice dropping, moves like a phantom, leaves no trace. They call him the Carver. Tall, lean, built like a predator. He's efficient, brutal, and utterly silent. He doesn't just kill, he dissects. The carver, not a common thug, but a specialist, a professional executioner. This is the enforcer, the sharpest blade in their arsenal. Where does he operate from? You press, your grip tightening on the phone. No fixed address, he's a ghost. But he has a preference for the old docks, the abandoned factory complex by the river. Says the echoes help him think. The informant clears his throat. Look, Thorne, you're playing with fire. The people behind this, they're not just politicians. They're a hydra, a name to put to the faceless threat. This is about survival, about tearing down the architecture of power that seeks to crush you. The hunt has truly begun. It is not peace, but the quiet hum of a coiled spring, a predator's breath held. You trace the rim of a chipped ceramic mug, the coffee inside long grown cold, a bitter echo of the betrayal that still stings. This isn't just about a dead councilman anymore. You are a fugitive, stripped of everything but your resolve, and now, a target. Your fingers tap a rhythm on the worn desktop, a strategy unfolding in the quiet. The enforcer, the one who handled the councilman's final moments, the one who carried out the orders. He is the thread. You have the scent, a ghost of a location, a pattern of movement gleaned from the fragmented data salvaged before your world collapsed. An abandoned industrial park, sprawling and skeletal, becomes your hunting ground. Rusting hulks of machinery loom like forgotten beasts, and the wind whistles through shattered panes of glass. Here, amidst the decay, the enforcer makes his infrequent visits, a creature of habit, drawn to the solitude of his illicit dealings. The enforcer emerges, a thick-set man, his movements precise, practiced. This is your moment. You descend, a silent predator. The crunch of gravel under your boots is the only sound as you approach the warehouse door, left slightly ajar. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of dust and stale oil. The enforcer is at a makeshift table, counting stacks of currency, his back to the door. The rhythmic slap of paper against wood is hypnotic, almost peaceful. Evening, you say, your voice cutting through the quiet like a razor. I'm here for a name. His lips curl into a sneer. You got guts, Thorne. Who gave the order for the councilman? And who's next? He laughs, a harsh, guttural sound that echoes in the cavernous space. You think I'd tell you anything? You think they'll protect you once this goes south? They'll cut you loose just like they did with the last one. You're a tool, nothing more. You press, watching for the cracks. I know about the ledger. I know about the dirty money. And I know about the man who pulls the strings. Give me the name and maybe, just maybe, you walk away from this. Otherwise, you become another loose end they'll clean up. He hesitates, his gaze darting around the warehouse, weighing his options. The threat is palpable, the truth of your words sinking in. He knows you're right. He knows the system. Finally, a sigh escapes him. A surrender. It's Marcus Thorne, he mutters, the name catching you off guard. Your own name? No, that's not right. Then you see the slight smirk, the glint in his eye. No, not you. The other Marcus Thorne. The one who owns the docks. Marcus Thorne, the businessman. He watches your reaction, a perverse satisfaction in his eyes. He's moving the real ledger tonight. From the old printing press on the waterfront to his private underground bunker. He thinks he's untouchable. Marcus Thorne. This is it, the mastermind, the architect of the conspiracy. A surge of triumph, sharp and intoxicating, floods your senses. You have him. You have the name, the location, the motive. This is the truth, the key to exposing the entire rotten structure. You secure his hands, a temporary measure, a promise of a future reckoning. You leave him there, a pawn exposed, and move with renewed purpose. The city's lights smear into streaks as you drive, the hum of the engine a counterpoint to the thrumming excitement in your veins. The old printing press, a derelict structure near the docks, is shrouded in a thick, salty fog. But there's no resistance, no watchful eyes. You step inside, your weapon drawn, your heart thrumming a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The vast space is empty, dust motes dancing in the single beam of moonlight slicing through a broken skylight. No ledger, no movement. A cold dread begins to creep, a serpentine whisper in the back of your mind. Too easy. The enforcer, the smirk, the name. Then the click. A soft metallic sound from behind you. You spin, but it's already too late. A blinding spotlight snaps on from above, pinning you in its harsh glare. He steps into the light, his expression devoid of emotion. You're under arrest for the murder of Councilman Vance and for the attempted theft of evidence from a crime scene. Your gaze drops to the floor beside you. There, meticulously placed, is a bloodied wrench. The enforcer hadn't given you a name. He'd given you a sacrifice. The other Marcus Thorne was a phantom, a convenient diversion. You were never meant to expose them. It was the frost of calculated malice, a meticulous snare sprung with deadly precision. The bloodied wrench, a clumsy prop, lay beside the open ledger, its pages a symphony of crafted deceit, each number singing your demise. A sharp pain lanced through your temple, a dull throb blooming where the blunt force had struck, a memory of the sudden impact that had sent you sprawling. Disoriented, you push yourself up, your hand finding purchase on the dusty floor. You are meant to be the fall guy found amidst the damning evidence. Your vision blurs for a moment, then sharpens, focusing on the scrawled figures in the ledger. Not just fabricated, but specifically fabricated to mirror the illicit transactions you had been investigating. Only now, the blame points squarely at Marcus Thorne. It speaks of intimate knowledge, of someone who knew your methods, your targets, your very thoughts. Outside, the distant rumble of an engine fades. They thought you were finished, a loose end tied off. Wounded, yes, but not broken. The adrenaline surges, cutting through the haze of pain. You move with a practiced swiftness, your body a coiled spring despite the ache. Your fingers brush against the rough binding of the ledger, then snatch it, a crucial piece of the puzzle. The wrench, too, is pocketed, a silent witness. Every detail, every misplaced item tells a story. They had left in haste, confident in their work. A subtle scent lingers in the air, not of gunpowder, but something else. A faint, almost floral note, incongruous in this stark landscape. A detail, fleeting, but your mind clings to it. You slip out into the pre-dawn grayness, the desert wind a harsh caress against your bruised face. Vance, who had always presented himself as a champion of civic progress, a beacon of integrity. Vance, whose office you had visited, noticing the same subtle, almost floral air freshener in his private study. The pieces click into place with the sickening precision of a well-oiled lock. The councilman had been an obstacle, perhaps unwilling to sign off on a rezoning proposal that would benefit Vance's undisclosed shell corporations. The stolen funds, laundered through a network of phantom businesses, were the capital for this very land acquisition. Vance. It was always Vance. His public persona, a shield of respectability, masked a predatory ambition. He was the architect, the puppeteer, pulling strings from the highest echelons of power. His influence reached into the police force, allowing for the initial misdirection of your investigation, ensuring the evidence would lead you down a predetermined path, straight to your own ruin. The sudden promotion, the ease with which he navigated bureaucratic hurdles, it all made a terrible sense. He wasn't just a part of the city's elite, he was its hidden rot. You pull out your burner phone, your fingers fumbling slightly with the unfamiliar interface. Elena. She needs to know. Her initial skepticism, the professional distance, had been understandable. She had to see. The line connects, a crackle of static, then her voice, sharp with concern. "Marcus, where are you?" "The precinct. They're issuing an APB. They're saying you assaulted an officer, that you're connected to the councilman's murder." "It's a setup, Elena," you rasp, your voice rough with strain. "They tried to kill me. They left a wrench, a ledger. They're framing me for everything." You recount in clipped, urgent tones the ambush, the evidence, and the logical leap to Vance. You explain the land deal, the shell companies, the councilman's resistance. You can almost hear her mind working, sifting through the layers of official narrative, the carefully constructed lies. Then, a sigh, heavy with resignation, but also a nascent understanding. "Vance," she murmurs, the name a poisoned dart. He was so quick to offer condolences, to assist with the investigation. Her voice hardens, shedding its earlier doubt. "The department has been compromised. Not everyone, but enough. I can't move openly." "I know," you say, your gaze fixed on the horizon, where the city skyline now shimmers faintly in the distance. "But you can help, covertly. I need eyes and ears inside. Anything on Vance's recent financial dealings, any sudden transfers, any land acquisitions that moved too quickly. Anything that links him to those shell companies. It won't be easy," she warns, "but I believe you, Marcus. They went too far. I'll reach out to a few trusted contacts, off the books. Give me a day. Stay hidden, and be careful. The mastermind is unmasked, the full scope of the conspiracy laid bare. Elias Vance, the city's golden boy, the architect of its future, is the venom in its veins. You are wounded, hunted, but no longer blind. The truth is a weapon, and you intend to wield it. The climax looms, a confrontation with a power so entrenched, so unexpected, that it threatens to consume everything. But Marcus Thorne has nothing left to lose, and that you realize makes you the most dangerous man in the city. The last call from Elena had etched Elias Vance's name into your mind, not merely as a name, but as the intricate knot of the city's decay. You trace the worn lines of a topographical map, the hum of the counter a counterpoint to the rush of adrenaline that now sings in your ears. No longer blind, you see the path, stark and unforgiving, leading directly into the lion's den. Your fingers, still stiff from the bruising encounter, meticulously arrange the components of your desperate gamble. A small, encrypted data chip, a burner phone, a single heavy-caliber pistol, its cold steel a familiar weight. It was to be his coronation, the final act of his grand deception, a public spectacle where the last pieces of the city's soul would be sold under the guise of progress. This wasn't about redemption, it was about tearing down a lie, brick by corrupt brick. The plan, born from fractured intel and sheer audacity, felt like a wire walk across a chasm. Floodlights pierced the gloom, illuminating a pristine stage, a podium draped in civic banners, and rows of empty seats awaiting the city's elite. The air vibrates with the hum of generators and the distant whir of early news helicopters. Your objective: a utility access tunnel Elena had pinpointed, a forgotten artery beneath the glitzy facade. The plan relies on precision, on exploiting the arrogance of a man who believes himself untouchable. The tunnel is a damp, echoing maw, smelling of mildew and forgotten things. Deeper in, the faint thrum of the event's power grid grows stronger, a pulse beneath the earth. You reach the designated junction, a tangle of conduits and thick cables. Here, you connect the small device, a silent saboteur, to the main audio feed. It's a simple, brutal stroke. An audio loop of incriminating conversations Elena had painstakingly pieced together, set to broadcast through the main speakers at a precise moment. Your work done, you ascend, emerging into a service alley behind the main stage. The ceremony is underway. The mayor, a puppet on Vance's strings, is delivering a platitude-laden speech. He smiles, nods, his eyes sweeping over the assembled crowd, missing nothing, or so he believes. The moment stretches, taut as a piano wire. Then the mayor's voice falters, replaced by a sudden burst of static. A ripple of confusion spreads through the crowd. Chaos blooms. Gasps turn to shouts. Reporters scramble, their cameras swiveling. Vance's face, a mask of smooth composure moments ago, contorts into a rictus of shock and fury. His eyes dart, scanning the crowd, searching for the source of his undoing. He sees you then, emerging from the alley's gloom, a figure etched against the rising sun, the ghost of his past failures. Thorne. His voice, raw with outrage, cuts through the growing pandemonium. He pushes past the mayor, past bewildered security personnel, his gaze locked onto yours. The audio loop continues its relentless exposure, each word a hammer blow to his carefully constructed edifice. He moves with surprising speed, a desperate animal. You stand your ground, your hand already on the grip of your pistol. But your true weapon is the truth now echoing across the plaza. He shoves aside a startled cameraman, his eyes wild. The crowd scatters, a tide of panic. You give chase, a visceral, primal pursuit. He scrambles onto the stage, a frantic figure silhouetted against the bright morning. He tears at the cables, ripping wires from their sockets, but it's too late. The damage is done, the truth unleashed. It clatters to the stage, a glint of steel. He snatches it up, a desperate weapon. "You'll pay for this, Thorne," he snarls, his voice ragged. You draw your pistol, leveling it, but hesitation flickers. You don't want to be the executioner, only the revealer. It's over, Vance, everyone knows. He charges, the shovel arcing through the air. You sidestep, the metal whistling past your ear, a near miss. The impact jars your shoulder as you push his back. He is stronger than he looks, fueled by a lifetime of entitlement and the rage of a cornered predator. He swings again, a wild, clumsy blow. You duck, close the distance, and strike, a precise jab to his solar plexus. The air whooshes from his lungs. He stumbles, gasping, dropping the shovel. Security guards, finally reacting to the unfolding chaos, converge on the stage. Vance, seeing them, makes one last desperate move, scrambling to the edge of the platform, intending to leap into the thinning crowd. But your hand clamps down on his arm, a grip of iron. You pull his back, twisting, and he collapses, a heap of expensive fabric and shattered ambition, as the first uniformed figures reach the stage, their weapons drawn, their faces grim. The audio loop finally dies, replaced by the shouts of the arriving officers. You watch as Vance is cuffed, his eyes, still blazing with a dying fire, meet yours one last time. There is no victory in your gaze, only the grim satisfaction of a truth finally brought to light. The city's venom has been exposed. The shovel, heavy with intent, cleaves the air a second time, a whisper of imminent violence. You duck, feeling the displaced wind ruffle your hair as the rusted metal strikes the rock face behind you with a jarring clang. The impact sends a shower of grit into your eyes, but you blink it away, your focus a sharpened blade. He stumbles from the force of his own missed swing, his breath ragged, the scent of fear and sweat acrid in the cool desert night. You see the opening, a flicker of weakness in his entitled fury. As he struggles to regain his balance, the shovel an unwieldy extension of his panic, you lunge, not with brute force, but with the precision of a seasoned predator. Your hand shoots out, gripping his wrist, twisting. A sharp crack echoes, and the shovel clatters to the dusty ground, its purpose now nullified. He howls, a primal sound of pain and outrage, but you give him no quarter. Your knee finds his gut, a swift, brutal strike that robs him of air. He doubles over, collapsing onto the sand, gasping, his face a mask of disbelief and defeat. The distant wail of sirens, faint but growing, finally pierces the silence of the desert. You stand over him, watching the last vestiges of his power drain away, leaving only a broken man. The detective and a squad of officers arrive moments later, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, illuminating the scene. The desert holds its breath as they secure the perimeter, their faces grim, their movements precise. You offer a terse nod to the detective, the unspoken understanding passing between you like a current. Stacks of bundled cash, crisp and new, sit alongside ledgers filled with cryptic entries and digital files projected onto a makeshift screen. The portable money counter, a small, unassuming machine, whirs incessantly, spitting out totals, each digit a nail hammered into the coffin of the city's corrupt heart. You watch as the detective, his brow furrowed, sifts through a stack of shell company documents. "It's all here, Marcus," he murmurs, his voice low, almost reverent. "Every dirty dollar, every backroom deal, every name." You pick up a photograph from the table, a faded image of the murdered councilman shaking hands with a prominent developer, their smiles wide, their eyes holding a shared secret. The pieces, once scattered and fragmented, now interlock with horrifying clarity. The vast network of kickbacks, the land deals disguised as public works, the systematic siphoning of city funds into offshore accounts. It's all laid bare. The next few days are a blur of headlines and flashing lights. The city erupts in a storm of outrage and disbelief. Widespread arrests sweep through the municipal building, ensnaring council members, developers, and even a few high-ranking police officials. The mayor, his face ashen, announces his resignation, citing personal reasons that fool no one. The institution you once served, now purged of its most virulent infection, begins the slow, painful process of rebuilding trust. Justice, raw and unyielding, is served, but the cost is etched deep into the city's psyche. You stand on the balcony of your small apartment, the city lights twinkling below like scattered diamonds. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of rain that never quite materializes. Elena joins you, her hand finding yours, a silent anchor in the turbulent wake of your actions. Her presence is a balm, a quiet affirmation of connection that transcends the chaos. You look at her, really look, and see not just a partner, but a mirror reflecting the man you've become. You confronted the betrayal that haunted you, not by avenging it, but by exposing a truth far greater than your personal pain. The city, once a labyrinth of despair, now holds a fragile promise of renewal. You are not the same Marcus Thorne who started this grim chase. The scars remain, indelible markers of battles fought, but beneath them, something new has taken root. Purpose. You are still Marcus Thorne, the private investigator, but your compass now points true. The city is forever changed, its innocence irrevocably lost, but in its ruins, a chance for genuine accountability has been born. And you, a flawed and weary sentinel, will be there to watch over its fragile rebirth, one truth at a time. The work is not over, it never truly is, but for the first time in a long time you feel ready for it.